Welcome, specialists, coaches, dads and
If
kickers,
we were
moms,
last in the
punters,
country returning
relatives,
punts, I
and
might not be on the
long snappers, dogs
podcast.
that
So
check
shout out to
kickoffs.
the
Two,
R&B
the
team.
Iceman Kicking
Hey, and
Podcast.
everyone listening, man,
It's
y'all
the
order my
show
dog's
with
book,
cold
man. Y'all
questions
stop playing
and
with my guy,
cooler
man.
guests.
Iceman Kicking.
We
Go
are
get the
here
book, the
to
Kicker's
talk about
Bible.
the ins and
Order
outs
the
of
thing.
special
Support
teams
this young
and
man.
specialists. And I am your host, Brett Arkelian. Before we get into the episode, a few reminders. We encourage you to tweet about today's episode. Tag us at Iceman_kicking and use the hashtag Iceman Kicking Podcast or Cool Under Pressure or Big Kick Energy to let us know what you enjoyed about the episode or any recommendations for who you'd like to see on the podcast next. Also, if you are interested in any of the fantastic information discussed here today, you can find all of this and more in the Kicker's Bible. Proven training methods and secrets used by professional specialists by yours truly, Brett Arkelian. It includes tips from over 20 NFL specialists, along with numerous personal accounts from Eagles Hall of Fame kicker David Akers and current University of Florida analyst and ex-NFL kicker Shane Graham. Visit IcemanKicking.com or go to our Twitter bio to purchase your copy today. Now sit back and get ready for one cold episode.
If we were last in the country returning punts, I might not be on the podcast. So shout out to the R&B team. Hey, and everyone listening, man, y'all order my dog's book, man. Y'all stop playing with my guy, man. Iceman Kicking. Go get the book, the Kicker's Bible. Order the thing. Support this young man. Right.
To the Iceman Kicking Podcast. It's the show with cool questions, even cooler guests. And I'm here today with a very esteemed colleague of mine, Coach Roc Bellantoni. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good, Brett. Thanks for having me on. I don't know if I'm an esteemed guest or a cool guest, but I'll do my best for you, man.
I think you're both of those. and just to reinforce that fact a little bit about Coach here, over his 27-year coaching career, Coach has coached the defense line and linebackers and served as not only just a defensive coordinator, but also a special teams coordinator at 3 different stops. He's reached the FCS play 7 different times and also has been to multiple bowl appearances with Buffalo and Washington State. He has mentored over 16 players who played professionally, including 3 NFL draft picks. For a time there, and this is what's very close to me, he coached in the OVC with EIU, Eastern Illinois, was an associate head coach there from 2007 to 2011, and he helped EIU win 5 Ohio Valley Conference championships and make 6 NCAA playoff appearances. Coach, welcome to the cold seat. All right.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Of course, man. I'm super excited to get into this. How's Ogden this time of year?
Yeah, it's actually it's like Florida in winter. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's like upper 70s, low 80s. Now I know that probably won't last for much longer, but it's been beautiful, man, with no humidity, and it's a really, really cool area. There's a mountain right outside my window. Something I know in West Virginia there's mountains, and maybe not quite as high as that one I'm looking at. So it's a pretty neat area, man.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely partial to the West Coast and the west side of the United States, being from California. And absolutely, there's some beautiful mountain ranges, and especially Utah, just a lot of natural beauty. Now, I want to talk about, your upbringing, where you come from. Utah's a little bit different of a setting for you. You grew up in New York. Talk to us about how you got into this crazy coaching profession and your college and coaching career.
Wow. Yeah. Let's see if I can remember back that far. You said 27 years of coaching. You about broke my heart. I grew up outside New York City. Great place to live. Port Chester, New York, God's country. Ended up going to UMass. I was there for 2 years and transferred to Iona College, played football there. One of my college teammates was actually Kyle Flood, who's the O-line coach at Alabama right now and was the head coach at Rutgers. Had a great experience at both places playing football. I wanted to coach football. Probably got in it for the wrong reasons. I wanted to keep in the game. I wanted to continue to compete, and the money wasn't that big at that time, but I thought it would be a nice way to make a living, and over the years why I stayed in it has changed. I didn't have a whole lot of guidance coming out and turned down a couple of volunteer opportunities that I probably, if I could go back, I would have took them at either Fordham or Columbia or one of those around the city. I thought like I had to make money, and I took a job at a high school for 2 years, in-school suspension coordinator in the suburbs of New York City. So that drove me out of high school football pretty quickly. This was back before the internet, so you guys would be shocked to hear that. I had a subscription to the NCAA News, and that's how you found out about jobs. And I sent out hundreds of applications and got millions of rejection letters that I kept for a long time. And the first job offer I got was at Buena Vista Division III school in Iowa. Flew into Omaha, Nebraska. Never been so scared in my life. It's pretty bright on the East Coast, and you go to the middle of the country and there's no street lights and it's so dark. And but I went to the College World Series. I got the job. Was at BV for 3 years as a graduate assistant. And when you're a GA at a D3 school, you drive the van to the game, you water the grass, you line the grass, you do the laundry, you pick up the food, you wear so many hats, and then you're a position coach. You're not just a GA. I coached the D line, ran the punt return team and the field goal block team, and learned so much in those 3 years. And then I went to Drake University for actually, I got to say this for my wife, if she listens, she'll kill me. I met my wife there, and we got our 2 dogs there. But it was good. It was a good experience. I was young. I was stupid. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot, grew up a lot, and then went to Drake University because our head coach had come from Drake. And that's where I really, really cut my teeth as a coach. At Drake at the time, Rob Ash was the head coach, a legend in the Pioneer League. I think he's the all-time winningest coach. And our staff, Brendan Daly was the tight ends coach. He's now D-line coach of the Chiefs. He won a bunch of Super Bowl rings with the Patriots. Chris Ash, Dave Dorn, Charlie Partridge, Noah Joseph, Jamie Marshall. Billy Cundiff was our kicker, who kicked in the NFL for 15 years. But those guys that I mentioned as far as coaching, especially Dave, Charlie, and Chris, we were young, we were hungry, we learned a lot of football, we had a lot of fun. And that's where I really made most of my contacts and learned probably the most about defensive football was at Drake in my 3 years there. The first 2 years I was a D-line coach in the GA, and we only had one full-time position on defense. Well, Chris left to go to Iowa State, who replaced Dave Dorn, who replaced Jay Neiman. I mean, a nice little run of defensive coordinators, and I got that job. I was making $27,000, and I thought I was rich. It was awesome, and did that for a year. We won the Pioneer League 2 of my 3 years there. Got a chance to go to Eastern Illinois from being on the assistant coaches committee with Roy Wickey, who was the offensive coordinator, and he got me a foot in the door. I was there for 11 years. The last 10, I was a defensive coordinator there. I was, like you said, associate head coach and all that stuff. Got to be the head coach for 2 games when Coach Spoo was sick. It was the best 2 weeks of my life, other than him not being there, because I did love him like a father. But that was great. And I'd like to be a head coach again someday because that was awesome. Stayed, for 11 years at Eastern, and my family and I, we thought we'd be there for a long, long time. The talk was that I'd be the head coach when Coach retired, and the last couple of years, the first couple of years, Tony Romo was our quarterback. The last 2 years, Jimmy Garoppolo was our quarterback, and Jimmy was young, and we had a really young team at the time, and so they didn't go through with the plan, and they gave the job to Dino Babers, who went in and did a great job there, won 2 conference championships. And so I moved on to Villanova, who at the time was talking about transitioning to the Big East, and that fell through. But it still was, I was there 2 years, and, at the time I was kind of bummed that I wasn't staying at Eastern. And that 2 years in Philly was incredible for me. Andy Talley, Coach Spoo for 11 years, I learned so much from him, but Coach Talley at Villanova, I was only there 2 years, but you'd think I worked with him for 15 years. A lot of my beliefs and passions come from him. And that was my first time as a special teams coordinator. So we won what was it at the time? The CAA, I guess, not the Yankee Conference, but we won it the first year. The second year we had a better team, but we slipped up in a couple of games. And then that's when Charlie Partridge got the FAU job, and our tie, going back to our time at Drake, is how I got in with him. And, I'd actually stay at, I was in the OVC. We didn't have a lot of money. So when I'd go down and recruit Florida, I've been doing that for 20 years. But, I'd stay at Charlie's dad's house sometimes to save money for the program. And because we worked together, he was at Iowa State as the director of football operations. he came to be the D-line coach my first year as a coordinator at Eastern. And then he went to Pittsburgh, and then we got back together at FAU. But we'd hook up in recruiting all the time, and good friends and all that stuff. And that was probably my favorite 3 years in coaching at FAU and in the Conference USA. That was awesome. It was a great place, and I thought we really had it going. And then our third year there, we thought we were turning the corner. I turned down a job at the Big Ten to stay there, and then we had a rash of injuries. I mean, 9 linemen we lost that year to injury. I played the last game of the year with my seventh Mike linebacker. We only traveled 3 linebackers to the game. One of them got hurt on the first series. We ended up playing with a nickel and a dime, a true freshman, 170-pound dime. So, but that was our last game there, and Charlie got let go. And I'm rambling here, man. So I'm sorry, Brett, but I got to give you my history.
Hey, so
I appreciate it. Charlie got let go, and then, so you go through the process of trying to find a job and all that. And I had a couple opportunities, but right before I was to take one, the day before, my wife went to the doctor and found out she had breast cancer. So I had to take the spring of 2017 off. I mean, I didn't have a choice. You got to be a man. You got to take care of your family. And thankfully, I was still under insurance because we had a good year on defense the year before at FAU, and they gave me a multi-year contract. And thankfully, they took care of me and kept me on the insurance. And we got her healthy over the summer. That was when they created the 10th assistant position. And thankfully, Lance Leipold, who I had some relationships with him and a couple other guys on staff, had held that job for me, really. And, I went up there for 2 years at Buffalo. I didn't want to move my family so that my wife could keep going to her doctors. And also because my boys are big-time baseball players, and that was like baseball playing heaven. And I didn't want to be moving them around, especially with my oldest being a sophomore in high school. It was a big year for him. So I lived in Tonawanda, New York, and worked at the University of Buffalo, and lived in an apartment with 2 other coaches who left their families somewhere else. And that was tough. That was a rough 2 years. I mean, we had a good program and a good team, and I loved it. But being away from your family, that was not a lot of fun. And then out of the blue, one day I was recruiting in Florida in my house in the morning, getting ready to go out and recruit. And I got an email from Tracy Clays seeing if I was interested in going to Washington State. And so obviously, yes. And went out there and took the linebacker job there. We thought we'd be there for a long time. So we moved my family to Pullman, Washington, complete opposite end of the country. And, ended up, Tracy ends up quitting 5 games into the season. He quit. And thankfully I got promoted to coordinator, which was nice. You get hired by Mike Leach and then promoted a few months later. Told me I was doing something right. And, we salvaged. It was a rough year and a tough situation. And somehow we salvaged enough wins to get to a bowl game, which was cool. We lost the bowl game, which wasn't great. And then coach went to Mississippi State, obviously. And totally, I've been in the business a long time, man. I get it. He couldn't take me as a D coordinator there. I get that. And, the way he does it is the D coordinator hires his own staff, and he had his own guys that he wanted. And so there was no room for me there. So and this is after the convention. It's after a lot of the jobs have, but thankfully Utah State had a position for me. And I couldn't be happier to be here. It's worked out really well. The special teams coordinator here, and also working with the defense now, trying to help them with some things. It's been pretty cool. So we'll see how this season goes and what the future holds, man. It's been a nice run.
Man, you've definitely had a illustrious career there, and there's a lot to unpack there. So let me start from the start. Let me take you back real quick. All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Drake. That's where actually my late grandfather, who was, always my role model, attended. So shout out to Drake.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. And he talks about, he had fantastic times there. He's from Iowa originally. You talked about how tough that move was coming from New York to Iowa. What was one thing that was totally different when you got into coaching there at Drake or at the Division III school, Buena Vista, that you were at, that was totally different from what you were used to?
So let me ask you if this would count as being different. The smell of a beef packing plant right down the street from your apartment, would that be something that would be different?
That would be pretty big, I'd say.
It was, and then the one day that it got to set negative 69-degree wind chill factor, it was such a culture shock, man. It really was. And the people in Iowa were over the top nice. And I was a New Yorker with a chip on my shoulder. And I was an asshole. I'm just going to be honest with you at that time in my life. And maybe I still am. But, you walk down the street and people are saying hi to you, or they're waving at you in the car, and you're just, what is wrong with this? What are they trying? What's their angle? And everything was different. It was just a different world for a kid that grew up outside New York City, and then the only time he left home was to go to college in Massachusetts, which isn't much different. So I learned a lot about myself and about life and about people.
Man, absolutely. Yeah, that's a pretty cool experience. Drake Bulldogs, man. I always got to pull for the Drake Bulldogs.
Yeah.
What about you talked about Villanova, the cool experiences you had there. You really enjoyed Philadelphia, and that's not far away from New York City. What did you like about that opportunity you had there at Villanova?
Wow. Just at that time, the last 4 or 5 years of my time at Eastern Illinois, I was doing most of the day-to-day running of the program, and then trying to run the defense and go down to Florida to recruit. And I didn't realize how burned out I was. And then I went to Villanova, and Coach Talley was just so awesome to be around. And, just relax, relax. You got the special teams, you got the D-line, you go recruit your kids in Florida, but relax, get to be around your family more. He was just an awesome guy at a time in my life where I really needed a mentor to teach me what really mattered. And, the quality time that we got to spend as a family, because, he wasn't a grinder. We weren't in the office 14 hours a day. And you know what? He won a lot of games doing it that way, and won a national championship doing it that way. And it was what we, and he told me this when he hired me, and he told me it would be exactly what we needed. And he was right. It was exactly what we needed as a family, and what I needed as a coach to really try to figure out what I believed in and what I wanted to stand for as a coach. Wow. And Philly was awesome. Yeah. It was, and not just the cheesesteaks, but I freaking loved Philadelphia. It was great being there, man. The people are passionate about football and sports, and it was close to my family, and it was a great time in our lives.
I love Philadelphia too. Like I told you, I lived in Amish country, about 5 minutes south there of Philly. But man, to me, it was one of my favorite things to do is go into Philly. And there's so much different stuff to see there, and yep. I'm a history guy too, so much history, obviously, in Philadelphia. Yeah, I'm very curious about that too, because, especially in this day and age, it's, do anything you can to help your program win. And I'm very, I'm all about that. But I'm interested in hearing about the programs that, maybe they're not in the office so much, or maybe, they know how to spend their time focused to help themselves win. What did you learn at Villanova that, you saw help them win without spending 16-hour days in the office?
Well, I think, not only Villanova, but Washington State is set up the exact same way. And, come in, get your work done, be organized, don't waste any time. The more you stare at that film isn't going to make your players know it anymore. So after you watch the same play 3 times, you probably don't not need to watch it 33 times. It's about what they know, not about what you know. And you need to get them ready to play on game day. And we practiced in the mornings there. So our meetings in the morning were short. So you had to be organized with your stuff the day before to be ready for your meetings. So when you got there in the morning, you could run your meeting. You had no time to waste in your meeting. You had to get through the plays and the install. And I think I just learned how to be really organized with my time. And like I said, it's paid off there with a lot of wins over the years. I think Washington State was the same thing with Coach Leach. The offense would have their schedule. The defense would have their schedule. There's not much of that wasted time during the day where you're sitting in the staff room and just talking amongst yourselves. You got to be organized with your time and get in, get your stuff done, and get out. And I would think, I've read every book that a coach has wrote. My wife makes fun of me about that all the time, but Bob Stoops was that way, which is maybe why Coach Leach is that way. I would think the more I hear about coaches wanting their coaches to be around their families, the better, I think, for our profession and the future of it. I would think after this pandemic, people would learn that you don't need to be in the office 15, 16 hours a day to get your job done. You can take your iPad home and watch film on your iPad and, You know, you can call your player on the phone or get on a Zoom with him and talk to him face to face if he's having problems. And you know, I hope I'm not gonna be in this profession a whole lot longer, you know, 10, 15 years maybe, but I'm hoping if one of my kids ever wants to get in it, it's heading in the right direction where we can have lives and not work ourselves to death like I've seen over the course of time.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I'm a supporter there for sure. And I think it's very cool because you've seen those experiences and you've seen how they've worked out. So that's you know, that's something I think we should all aspire to.
I also want to be sure that people know I'm not afraid to work.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, I'm going to do what I need to do, right? But
Sure.
and I'll be there as long as you need me to be there. So
I'm with you. I'm with you for sure. Yeah, we hear both sides of it for sure. You talked about FAU and the great experiences you had there. You know, how do you keep your guys focused and locked in when they've gone through that adversity that you talked about? I mean, like you said, you had, you know, you're on your seventh linebacker, middle linebacker, and, you know, you had a 170-pound dime out there. You know, how do you keep your guys motivated and, you know, striving to do well, even facing all that adversity, such as injuries?
yeah, well, FAU it wasn't the easiest because there's a lot of distractions there. I mean, there's South Florida nightlife. There's 1.8 miles from the beach, right? I'm sure you've seen that a million times. But it's true. I mean, if you go and you lose a game on the road, and yeah, everyone wants to win, and they'd be really disappointed about it. But if the next day you could go to the beach and unwind a little bit and do your homework and be walking around beautiful Boca Raton, you know, that might ease your pain a little. You know what I mean? For the players, I'm saying. But I don't think, you know, when you're going through adversity, I think it comes down to what makes you tick. What is your goals? You know, our players all had the goal of playing in the NFL, being the best player they could. You know, if they didn't work hard in practice or they didn't take their film studies seriously, they wouldn't put a good product on the film on Saturday, and their resume would not be very good. So I think what makes a player tick? Is that what he wants? Is it to play in the NFL? Is it just to represent the name on the front of the jersey and the back of the jersey really well on game day? What is it that you got to find the button that's going to work with him and keep him focused on what he wants? What do you want, man? You want a degree? You want to be a doctor? Well, you better go to class. You know, you want to play in the NFL, but you're skipping reps in the weight room. How are you going to tell me you want to play in the NFL? So it's finding that button, man, and finding a connection with him, being able for him to hold you to your standard. Am I giving you everything I have as a coach to make you the best you can be? And then you hold him to what he really wants in life and trying to help him get there.
Sure. Sure. And part of that process is identifying it right away, finding out what they want, right? When you meet your guys, say you walk into a new room and you've been in a few new rooms in the last 10 years, how do you introduce yourself? How do you get to know them to where you're no longer a stranger and they feel comfortable about, you know, conversing with you and learning from you and being inspired by you?
Right. I'll tell you, the face mask has made that tougher because they can't see facial expressions and know whether you're joking around or not and things of that nature. But the first thing I do when I meet with my players is I tell them, okay, my title is coach, but I don't expect you to respect me because I'm called coach. I'm going to try to earn your respect every day, earn your trust and earn your respect with how I treat you, how I'm there for you when you need me. I will talk to you about everything, football, not football, your family, any problems you're having, how I coach you, how I try to get the most out of you. I'm going to try to earn your trust and your respect every day. And I think that's a big thing with kids is that, oh, wow, this guy, he's not coming in here being a dictator. He wants me to earn his trust. And it's a two-way street, right? I start at yes. I don't start at no. I trust them and I try to treat them as a grown man. But, you know, they do have to earn my trust as well and my respect. So I think that's part of it. The other thing, and Charlie was big on this at FAU, was connection. You know, you got to connect with your players somehow, some way. And that doesn't start when they get on campus or when they're a starter for you. It starts when you recruit them. And, you know, a guy like I'm watching him on TV right now. He just had an interception, I believe. Aziz Al-Shair, freshman All-American from Tampa, who really grew up without a home. And we had to go to his mentor's rec center to meet with him because he was embarrassed to bring us to a hotel room. And you build that connection in recruiting, and then you get them on campus. And now you have that connection that you always go back to. Whatever it is, how you connect with your player, I think gives you a good base that they can trust that you have their best interests at heart. You're not going to lie to them. You're not going to mislead them. You're not going to use them. And what you're telling them is going to make them better on the field, off the field, whatever it is, to try to help them be the best they can be.
Wow. Absolutely. Yeah. Just building that connection, right? And doing whatever you can to connect with them. I see guys really light up, when they realize, oh, he's not here just concerned about football. He's concerned with what you do this weekend. You need help with anything, is there anything, just talking face to face, right, can break down all those barriers.
No doubt, about things other than football. How's your grandma doing? I know she's sick. Or, how's things at home? How's the virus? Is it attacking your town? Is your family okay? Just little things like that go a long way.
Sure. 100%.
Not to mention having them over the house for a nice batch of cookies and some spaghetti bake that my wife can make. That goes a long way too.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm sure they really gravitate to that spaghetti bake there.
Yeah, they like whatever she makes. They usually like homemade ice cream. She's good at that. So we try to have them over as much as we can, which it's been tougher as the kids have gotten older and she's running them around from practice to practice and things of that nature.
No question. Now, I'm interested in you've seen a lot, you've done a lot in the successes that you've had. You've been with some very successful programs. Obviously, EIU, you guys won all those conference championships, bowl teams and all that. Is there one or two ingredients where you can say, hey, they had this in common and this is why we succeeded? Or is there something that really set those teams apart that they did very well together?
Wow, that's a great question. If we had the answer to that, we could make millions just bottling it up and selling it, right? Some of those teams at Eastern, they won in spite of themselves, I guess I'd say. I didn't think it was a very unified team. It was kind of divided, but their side of the ball or their position group was really unified, and together they were really good. And then there was 2005 was the most unified team I've ever been a part of in my life. Those guys would have killed for each other. They would have stepped in front of a bullet for each other. And then, in 2006, it might not have been that way. In 2009, it was back to what it was in 2005. So I don't know. I think good players, obviously. I think a good culture where they kind of hold each other accountable to themselves. I think that's probably the biggest key. Same thing at Villanova. The culture there was so strong and the players were so invested in each other. I think, and then in Buffalo, it was the same way. Those guys really rallied around each other. And I could list off about 6 NFL names right now, which helps. But those guys in Buffalo, it's such a different place to live. Okay, it's dark, it's cold, and those guys really get close and they played for each other so hard. It helps you win 10 games in a year. I think it's the bond of the players and then holding each other accountable to each other.
Yeah. And I like that you said holding each other accountable, because that's sometimes with some teams I see that's a quality that's missing, and that's to succeed. I feel like that is instrumental in finding that success as a team. It's something, I've kind of wondered about. All right, maybe you've been around some great players. Some guys maybe that are great players and they're just happy with where they're at, or some guys that are starters and they're just happy where they're at, or even backups that don't really want to strive to get better. Is there a way to reach those guys, or how do you motivate them to keep pushing? Is it a competition that helps them?
Yeah, the backups that are satisfied being backups, they're just happy to be on scholarship, happy to wear the uniform, happy to get the girlfriend. And it's really hard to reach those guys that are satisfied that aren't playing because they're just there. I'm not going to lie to you, man. There's been times where we at FAU was one time we had, a great freshman class in 2015 and 2016. There was a couple of them, couldn't tell them anything. They knew everything. And it was really hard to find those buttons to push. But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said earlier. You've got to know what's really driving that kid. Is it to get his family out of a bad situation, to make the NFL, to get his college degree, whatever it is? I think you need to find those buttons to push and really, if they're not responding to that, they're not going to respond. It's going to be really tough. And then the other way to get them to respond is competition and replacing them. And then you'll see if they'll snap out of it, and at times I've done a good job of that. At times it's been really tough to get it done.
Sure. Sure. But yeah, I'm sure the more you go on and the more you experience those things, this worked in this situation, so I'm sure it'll work here, and learn from those situations.
For sure. Absolutely.
Something that kind of goes along with that too. What's your process of developing your guys? How do you help your guys develop from the start of the season to mid-season to the end of the season? Especially this year, it's going to be a very unique situation, because we're gonna have a smushed in 8-week season, or 6-week season, however you guys are doing it. How do you make sure those guys are developing?
Yeah. This season's going to be it's going to be interesting to see, because if the kid has to miss a few days because of quarantine or whatever, it's going to really set him back a couple of weeks, right? I mean, it's going to be interesting. But I think over the course of time, I think keeping things simple, and not just scheme, but in terms of your technique and your terms that you use to get them to associate a certain behavior or a certain performance mechanism with a word, I think is important, right? Shimmy, run, shimmy your feet, don't break down. We say shimmy, things like that. I think if it starts to click after a while, then they get really good at certain things. But I don't know. It's I think Coach Leach, being with him last year, I thought he did a great job of developing players. We played Thursday night football after scout team was over on Thursday. The guys who weren't traveling and weren't playing, and even some of the guys who played in the games, they play some reps on Thursday night. And we were doing Thursday night football, rain, sun, snow. We did it on Christmas Day at the bowl game. So, but we're going to get our 40, 50, 60 plays of Thursday night football in, and those guys were going to develop at running our plays and our schemes, and that's the only way you're going to get better, and going down and holding up a card is not going to help them all that much. But I thought he did a tremendous job, and obviously the results over his career really speaks for themselves.
Sure, man, that's really cool to hear. Yeah, making those guys, just play ball and actually get some live reps there. Are you pulling for? I'm sure you saw that big victory Mississippi State had over LSU. Were you rooting for those guys then?
Oh, absolutely. I love those guys, man. Spurrier, Brock, Mealy, awesome, a nice Italian guy from New Jersey. A lot of those guys, really good friends with them. Darcel and Jeff. Still talk to all those guys from time to time. And obviously I want them to do well. I want them to be successful. And, I don't harbor any ill will. Of course, I, would have liked to have been around them, because I love being around those guys. We had fun a lot in the office. Wish you would have won a couple more of the close games, but yeah, I'm rooting for those guys to be really good this year.
Sure. Absolutely, man. That's really cool that they've, had that success, and you guys have had that, those great relationships, which for sure will benefit you down the line too. I want to switch it a little bit to more of the coaching aspect. We talk about, I think, from what I've seen, making in-game adjustments is something that great coaches do very well. Is there a way you go about that? Do you keep a pad and paper on you during a game, or how do you make in-game adjustments with your guys?
Yeah, that's as a defensive coordinator, up in the box, we would have a guy have one of those pads with the 8 formations on it. And every time we'd have a bust, whether it was a formation bust, we didn't adjust to emotion, or we misfit a play, he'd write the play down. And then at halftime, we'd show him the plays that we got wrong. We would review it in between series, but then go through it again at halftime and point out where we were wrong. But, I used to think this was BS when I was a young coach, that, guys wouldn't even have a call sheet and they just call the game. But I've done this throughout my career, you make adjustments in your head, not only series to series, but play to play. Okay, they ran this, they're setting up this. And you just have a voice in the back of your head that tells you what's going on. Special teams wise, Matt Brock did a phenomenal job of on Thursdays, I think it was, or Friday morning, we'd come in and he'd have a chart for game day eyes. And Justin Lustig did this too, but last year it's fresh in my mind. We'd have certain things that we would watch on certain units, and you go to him or Shane Gallant at the end of the series, or at the end of the play. Here's what I saw. Here's what they're doing. Here's how they're attacking us. And Matt had all of the returns and everything on the sideline, and he can adjust that right before they'd go take the field. And I thought he did an incredible job of that. So it's something I aspire to do this year on the sideline, is have those game day eyes and be able to make little tweaks and adjustments. You can't do anything major, right, differently, but if you can make a little tweak or adjustment that helps you, you'd be crazy not to do it.
That's really cool. So he would have like an actual sheet a drawing of, what they just ran and say, all right, here's what we should expect here. Correct?
Yeah, he'd have, maybe our kickoff scheme for the week, right? And you might make a little tweak to that you had planned, or their returns, and maybe have the one that they were majoring in that day, and they made this little adjustment to it, and with the markers, and show them what to expect. And I thought that was fantastic to have all that stuff on the sideline. And I hope he doesn't mind me talking about that. I don't think he would, but
Yeah. Well, I've heard. No, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, he's a great coach. I learned a lot from him last year. I thought he did a fantastic job of that. And the buy-in from the whole staff, all those guys I just mentioned, to help him on special teams is probably why we're really, really good. And I think Matt would be the first to tell you that.
Sure. Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that too. That's a huge – it's a big deal to get your staff to buy into whatever you're doing, especially as associate head coach, as a defensive coordinator. How do you get guys to believe in the message you're teaching, not just players, but guys on your staff? Is it including them in your game plans, or how do you get your guys bought in on what you're teaching?
Yeah, well, fortunately, the places I've been, they've all been bought in. Haven't had to try, and I think that comes because of the support of the head coach. You take who you want on these units. If they can't start for you on special teams, how are we putting them out there on offense or defense? That the guys that I've been a special teams coordinator for, that's been their philosophy. So I don't think the staff has really had a choice whether to back him up or not on that. But I think to a man, everyone realizes we've all won or lost the game because of special teams. And I think it's easy for guys to buy in when they know it could affect the outcome of the game. So I'm thankful I've been around some really great coaches that have bought in.
Hey, preaching to the choir, coach.
Yeah, man.
Teams can win or lose a game. It's
no
very
doubt.
important, something we talk about all the time.
No doubt. Every play is a potential touchdown, one way or the other. Scary. Not fun.
Yeah.
Especially when it's windy.
Oh yeah. Well, as a specialist too, I'm not a big fan of the wind either. And actually, talk to me about that too, because with Villanova, you were a special teams coordinator. Obviously, you've dealt with specialists there that you had. Maybe not even a specialist, but your linebackers, he's having a bad day. He's struggling. Your specialist, he's just hitting horrible balls. How do you get him out of that funk? How do you get his mind focused on the next play and what's at hand?
Yeah. So a specialist, similar to my sons in baseball, if they go through a slump and they go 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, keep swinging, man. Keep swinging. Eventually that ball's going to find a hole. If I had a basketball player, keep shooting, man. That ball's going to go in the hole, right? Unless you're John Starks in the 1994 finals for my Knicks. Stop shooting, John. But I think, just get the next one, man. Forget about it. You got to have a short memory. And it's just like being a defensive guy, it's a DB, right? The DBs have to have short memories. The last play's over. Whether we had a pick six or you gave up a bomb, that play's over. You got to win the next one. And if we win enough plays in the game, we got a chance to win the game. So flush it, put it behind you. Don't worry about it. And you got to go out and play the next play.
100%. Yeah. Guys can get in their head, right? And then it becomes a lot bigger of a deal because they weren't able to snap out of it, get their mind on the next kick, and stop worrying about the last one. So
right. Yep.
Yeah.
Got to flush it.
Yeah, you got to, John Starks, you got to flush it. Your situationals here, I think, especially with special teams, that's what sets apart guys is when they show their team situationals that don't normally happen, but they're ready and they're prepared for that. Where you've been at Washington State or other places, is there any situational stuff that guys have showed their special teams units and that really stood out and was like, man, I didn't even think about that situation happening in a game?
At FAU and at Villanova, Rob Ash, right, coach has gotten out of coaching. He now runs an analytics company. And so with the connection that we've had at the places I've been at, they come in and they do a presentation. And then if you sign up and you're part of it, they send you these scenarios of clock management in games, good and bad. Like the Arkansas game from last night was almost a disaster for them, taking a knee before they could run the clock out. Things like that. Iowa State a few years ago, all they had to do was knee it out. They fumble, and the other Kansas State got the ball, went down, and kicked the field goal. So I'm not trying to call anybody out, please. But when you asked for examples, those two places, we watch those videos as a staff, and there's special team scenarios on there that hey, you kicked it out of bounds here, and you didn't run any time off the clock. They got the ball in the 35, gave them 15 yards of field position. They kicked a field goal with no time left on the clock. You lost the game because of your kickoff, not because of some play you gave up on defense. So I think you can't practice everything, but if you show your kids, and your coaches need to know this too, right? So you can try to avoid it, but if the kids can see it too, that here's why we're practicing that situation, and one of them was Belichick. And we did this at FAU. It didn't work out, but Belichick was down 11, gets in the field goal on the 30-yard line, kicks a field goal with 1 minute and 40 seconds on the clock to go down from down 11 to down 8, or down 10 to down 7, right? And you're like, what is he doing? And well, sure enough, his philosophy was, if you get the onside kick, now you have 1.5 minutes to go down and score a touchdown, as opposed to you may not score a touchdown on that previous drive. If you do, you might run another 50 seconds off the clock and have 30 seconds to score. And you're like, wow, that's brilliant. And to show that film to our kids and our staff, we made the decision at that time with no emotion on the line. We were going to do that. And we're playing UTSA at their place. And sure enough, we're down by 11 with 1 minute and 40 seconds. We get to the 20-yard line with Greg Joseph, who kicks in the NFL, go to kick the field goal. He misses. He only missed like 3 all year. He misses that one. They fry Charlie for the decision, but it's the right thing to do, because if you get the onside kick, you need that time to go down and score. So, again, just those scenarios, I think, showing your players and your coaches, I think, can help you win games.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, those are really interesting situations. Not a lot of people cover. And I think the big point you made there too is showing your players. As you stated earlier, you're only as good as what your players know, right? It doesn't matter how much you know, but if your players don't know, so showing them along with the coaches makes a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, they have to know. I mean, it's good for us to know. So we, when you're calling a play on offense or defense, you have the situation in your head. But the players have to understand why we're going to kick that field goal. And they knew it. And everybody on the sideline knew we were going to do it, and that's one example of a million that you can have, right? So that they understand that there's a thought process behind everything.
100%. 100%. So now I want to take you through a scenario, a situational, right? And this was almost you, or was you, you're the head coach. Okay. What is your philosophy? What is your culture that you're going to build here? Is there, a keyword or two you want to build it upon? Is there a message that you stress to your players every day? What do you build your program around?
Yeah, there's a few of them. Be where your feet. I'm a Dr. Kevin Elko fan. I follow everything he does. Be where your feet are, I think, is a huge one. Being at Villanova, tap the rock was the theme of the program there, and I've kind of adapted that to just keep tapping the rock, stealing it from them, I guess. And then, one I think is win now, right now, this second, right now. And then we start my meetings off, every meeting I have, whatever position or special teams or whatever, I say ready, they say ready. That means we're ready to start the meeting. I say win, and they say now, because we're winning right now, right this second, this moment. Be locked in. Let's win this meeting. When this meeting's over, let's go out to the field, win practice, win that play in practice, win the next play, win the next play. I think if you win, enough moments throughout a day, you can have a great day. If you win enough days, you can have a great month, a great year, a great career, a great life. And it all starts with now. And in my life, especially at the 2 years apart from my family, when I'd start thinking big picture, or man, the next time I'm not going to see them for another, 6 weeks, that's when I would get myself in trouble. And my brain would start locking up and doing crazy things and snap out of it right now. What do I got to do right now? I need to get ready for this position meeting. I need to go find dinner, whatever it is. I think win now. That's a big one for me, is win this moment right now.
Sure. Win now. I like that. Cause I've been in the same spot too, especially with COVID, right? I mean, we could sit here and play the hypotheticals all day, even about having a season, completing a season. There's still a lot, even for us, there's a lot of hurdles we have to get over to play the next game and play the game after that. So let's just win right now. Let's win the day right now. Let's win the next minute right now.
No doubt. Yep. I think it goes a long way. Could be a hashtag or a catchy saying, but I think if you live your life that way, you got a shot.
Sure. Absolutely. Man, it's been awesome, Coach. Just sitting here and chatting with you. We're about winding down, but I still have a few questions. Me being a young coach, we talked about this a little bit earlier. How do you make your family and your kids and your wife feel like they're a part of the team? Or how do you set time away? Because I'm sure there's been some times in your life where you're working all the time. You're working, it's in season 7 days a week. You're grinding there. How do you make them feel valued, make your wife feel valued?
Oh, well, I think it starts with your wife. She has to love this lifestyle. We look at it as a calling, not a job. This is about helping people be the best they can be, and helping them see some things in life that they wouldn't have seen. So she sees it. It means as much to her as it does to me. So without her, you can't have a relationship. You can't. It's not going to work. And that if she's on board, then the kids will be on board, because she'll get them on board. And I think back to our time at Eastern Illinois when we started having our kids. You're in a smaller town, town of 20,000 people, and it's 1AA football, and your kids could come on the field after practice. There's no fences, no security, no cameras, and I could pitch them baseballs on the field, and they're around the players. The players are picking them up. Tony Romo's carrying my son Gino around in a clothes basket because he'd come over the house. We'd play golf in the summer because he had nobody else to play with, and he'd come over and carry Gino around the house, and my wife would cook him dinner. And so, they've grown up around the game. And so hey, that's Dad's job. We'll be at Disney World when we live in Florida, and walking around Disney. Hey, I got to go take this call. You guys go on a Space Mountain or whatever. I'll see you when you're done. And they know I have to talk to this recruit, and they have to be on board with everything, or it's going to be rough if it's going to start pulling apart. And, so them being involved has been huge, because they've been there since day one, right? Since they've been born.
Yeah. And they've had some fantastic experiences too, hanging out with Tony Romo and going to Space Mountain. Or
Yeah.
got experiences.
Yeah. My 18-year-old went to Hawaii when he was 6 months old to watch a football. He didn't watch the game, but he was there, and one of my twins, their baseball coach, was asking if they took any cool vacations, and they're like, well, we either go play baseball, we go to football bowl games, or we go visit our family. Those are the only vacations we've ever taken. So they don't know any different. Maybe that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Yeah. Well, definitely unique experiences for sure. You've been around the game, and I'm not trying to date you or anything, but you've been around the game for a while. Is there something that you've seen with players or with just football in general that's really changed in the last maybe 20, maybe 10, maybe 5 years?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think some things have really changed for the better. I think our game is safer than it's ever been, and will only continue to get safer with the not only the rules, but the common sense of not having 3 practices in a day like when I played for 2 straight weeks. And if you gave them a half afternoon off, you were soft. I think our game is safer now. I love the aspect that players feel like they can voice their concerns more now, because if someone's treating you wrong, someone needs to know about it. I would just hope that the chain of command would be appropriate, so they'd go to the person they have the problem with first, and then if that doesn't work your way up the chain of command, instead of taking the alternative of throwing it out there when it could be just a miscommunication, right? But I love the fact that they feel like they can go and voice their concerns now. I think that's been for the better. For the worse, I think our game has changed a little for the worse in the fact that there's when I was young, and why I was a GA for 5 years, was there's only one GA on each side of the ball, right? And now there's 2, maybe a special teams GA. There's 8,000 analysts or QCs. I think the population of coaches is really thick. The competition is really thick to get those jobs. And I think people are in it for the money. Not that I don't like money, right? But I think the chase of the money is more than the development of the kid. And I think that's for the worse for our game. I think there's a lot of all show and no dough, guys that are big Twitter and dancing and, TikTok and all this other stuff, and not about the relationship with the kid and making the kid better. So there's been a lot of good, and there's been some bad. And, I don't want to be that grumpy old man. I like social media too, right? But I think those are things that we need to keep an eye on as a profession.
Sure. And actually be about the players, right? And actually be committed to the game, and not for the attention or for the popularity of it.
100%. Yeah, it shouldn't, the money is nice. It took me 20 years to not live, 23 years to not live paycheck to paycheck. And the money is nice, but it's not about the money. It's about making people reach their goals and making their lives better and helping them become the best version of themselves, and it took me, 5-7 years to figure that out. And I wouldn't change a thing about the way I was brought up in the profession.
That's awesome. Yeah, and there's nothing more fulfilling than, helping someone and seeing their eyes light up, when you can do something for them where they make that change, they understand a new concept, right? And they get excited. There's no better feeling than having that.
That's what gets you out of bed every day. Really does. That's what drives me.
Sure. That's really cool, Coach. I really appreciate that. All right, we're going to go a speed round real quick, and you can kind of fire off different experiences that you've had. All right, biggest win of your career, go.
Into the bowl game last year, beating Oregon State after overcoming 8 turnovers and winning the game at the end of the game with 2 seconds left.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right, most crushing loss or most heartbreaking loss?
Illinois State in the playoffs in 2006. We were up with about 2:37 left in the game. We turned the ball over late, and they went down and scored and advanced in the playoffs. That was the second time we lost to them that year, and that was our rival.
Dang, Redbirds. Huh?
Yeah.
Don't like those Redbirds at all. What was your best coaching experience?
There's been something positive at every place I've been. I really loved my time at FAU. I really did. The guys I worked with were brothers. The players were awesome, did everything we ever asked of them. They just didn't do it fast enough. That was my favorite job. And last year at Washington State was an awesome job as well.
Yeah, and you got to spend time with Chris Hurd there, another friend of the podcast there.
Like my brother, man. I had 9 brothers on that staff.
That's really cool. That part of it makes it great too. Biggest difference from coaching at a small school to a larger school, bigger school?
Just the amount of help that you have. And for guys that coached at the lower level, sometimes it's hard to juggle all that help and make sure that you're not still trying to do it all yourself.
Sure. What is one of the biggest mistakes that coaches make, either you've made or you've seen someone make, when they come into a new program?
Oh, yeah. Square peg, round hole. I'm going to run this system. This is my system. This is what I do, instead of and being hard line with that and trying to – it's great you can recruit people to that system, but if the guys you have right now can't do that system, you won't make it to that time to be able to run what you want to run. You have to be able to tweak things, and I think we learn that the hard way sometimes.
Sure. Square peg, round hole. You said it right with that. Okay, I know you're a huge Yankee fan, okay? And they got a big playoff game coming up. I actually do support Aaron Judge, played at Fresno State, so he's repping Fresno, California there. What is the score going to be of their game against the Rays, and who's going to stand out? Is there going to be a player that, really takes the stage there?
When the season started, I thought the Rays were the best team in the American League, so I don't feel great about it, man. But here's a stat. I don't have the exact stat, but Giancarlo Stanton over the years has dominated Petco Park. Won the home run derby there. He hit 8 home runs in 19 games in his career there. So for us to win, he's got to dominate that park again.
Sure. I like that. Giancarlo Stanton, player to watch from Coach Roc. Well, Coach, man, it's been an awesome time, man. And the reason I do this too is I get to, hang out and chat with phenomenal coaches in our field, and you're one of them. So
I appreciate it, man. I don't know about that, but I really appreciate being on here. It was fun, and I really hope somebody learns something from this. They can get something out of it that'll make them and our profession at the end of the day better.
I'm sure they will. I'm 100% sure they will. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything else you got going on? Places that people can reach you if they have any questions about coaching, at Twitter, email?
Yeah, my Twitter would probably be the best, at Coach Roc, R-O-C. That would probably be the easiest way to do it. My email would take me about 5 minutes to spell out my name. That would be great. And if anybody has anything I can help them with, don't hesitate to reach out. As long as I see it, I'll respond. It's sometimes you don't see everything, and I don't want people to get offended if I don't respond, but I'll try my best to do it.
100%. I know, just like me, you get a ton of messages a day, so I appreciate you responding to me. And,
No, man, I'm really glad I did. This was great. This was an awesome time, man. I really appreciate you having me.
Sure. Well, hey, it's been a fantastic time, Coach, and you have been on the cold seat. That's Coach Roc Bellantoni. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions you'd like asked or select guests coming up, follow and send us a message on Twitter and Instagram to Iceman_kicking, or icemancaking@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us and turn notifications on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud at Iceman Kicking Podcast, and rate and review us on Apple Music. This will be important as we will have giveaways going forward. Also, check out our TikTok under the same name for the best clips from these interviews. And tune in next week for another great Special Teams Mind. I'm Brett Arkelian, and for everyone at the Iceman Kicking Podcast, we hope you stay cool under pressure and have a great week.